Antar Atreya with us, and we are going to talk about how his journey has been. Firstly, giving a brief introduction about Antar Atreya. He is someone who you would want to talk about literature, about books, and especially about mythology anywhere, everywhere. And he's someone who has recently been into a top charters, and specifically as the poster also mentioned, he's Crossword and Amazon bestseller with this book called Chronicles of Mortal Vishnu. Thanks, Arthur, for joining with us.
Okay, and thank you for all those kind words. I'm really looking forward to this session, and I believe that this is going to be fun, intriguing, and informative
Pakka,
all at the
pakka.
same
I'm
time.
going to give my best here. Also, so
All right.
right off, and I want to know about that curious kid in school who dabbled onto different art forms, and how dad, dabbling, and how dad trying out different projects of how writing stuff made the person who you are today.
Well, all right. First of all, if I, really talk about my skill towards writing or my passion towards reading and literature, it's kind of a hereditary thing. My father, in fact, my father is writing a book as of now as we're speaking. He's working on a book. It's in Assamese and it's about his life. He came from a really small village, and then he recently retired as the deputy labor commissioner to the government of Assam. And also, my father and my mother, they had a intercaste, intercommunity marriage that way back in the 1990s. So with
Right.
all those kind of elements together, that's what he's writing, and he has always been writing. I remember reading his poems that he used to write for my mother, and that was the first thing that first touch with literature that I ever came into. And so I totally believe that it has got a lot to do with my interest towards writing has got a lot to do with my father's interest towards writing. And
Uh-huh.
I'd also have to mention this, that even my mother writes poems and all,
Wow.
maybe on social media or here and there, but
Right.
it's a kind of a something that runs in the blood, I would say. And with the kind of thing, in fact, my younger brother is into writing, so I believe that maybe even my
Runs in the
my kids
family.
and exactly, maybe my kids and their kids and all, everyone is going to write.
Right.
Should be a
Interesting.
family of writers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true, that's true. And and also you mentioned Assam, that's a and that's in a beautiful juncture of art, of beautiful landscapes down there. And also you mentioned that you have looked, so when you have parents who are into literature, who are into writing, that actually comes down onto their kid. So how important do you think the culture of or the dinner time conversations are in shaping up a person? I'm not just talking about literature here, but in general, a person, a citizen of India. So how important do
Hmm.
you think that is, that their teachings or whatever your parents are doing as a hobby came on to you?
Hmm. So see, if you talk about dinner time conversation, stuff like that, even today when I come back from Delhi to my home, my mother makes sure that the entire family eats together, and she always says that a family that eats together stays together, and that is something I really look up to. The kind of bonding that we have with each other in a family, that's really, I would consider myself really lucky. So these kind of things, especially in Indian context, it matters a lot. And I truly believe something, that when I was a kid, there were many things that were kind of live lessons, or about topics on ethics or moralities, those kind of things that we often as kids feel that they are kind of boring lectures from our parents or our elder ones. But as we grow older, or rather I should say, as we grow wiser, we realize that all those things have a meaning, and all those things were said for a reason. I do not advocate radicalism, or not, neither I advocate rigidity, but certain things, certain aspects of morality and ethics and stuff like that, that's very necessary, because that is how you are shaped up as an individual. And I truly believe that the kind of person that you're shaped up like, that is the kind of person that you're going to be in ahead in your life. So it's really important. Maybe if I was born in a different family, I would not be knowing much about mythology, I would not be writing about mythology, maybe I would have written about something else, or maybe I would not have been a writer at all. So there are things like that. It's not like that I have that uh, every time I have been understood by my parents. So every time um, things have been really easy. There have been difficult times as well, like right after my 10th standard, I wanted to
Mhm.
pursue humanities with maths and economics, but
Wow.
my entire family, to be really honest, my entire extended family, everyone is from science background. And
Right.
if you have been to Assam, you'd know this, that there is a even now there is a huge craze for students taking up science. It's sort of a taboo that a person, especially a guy, if he's going to a humanities stream. So those things, those were some kind of conflicts that even I had with my parents. But the best part was is that they're understanding. They're eager to listen to me, and then they never think that because I'm the kid, or I'm so many years younger to them, I would not be prudent. I mean, this is something that I've learned today, that you can learn anything from anybody. It does not matter. Maybe I can learn something from a 10-year-old, maybe I can learn something from a 75-year-old person as well. So
True,
so
true.
this kind of things, this kind of ideologies that I've been brought up with, um,
Mhm.
I guess that is why everything happened. And if I really talk about say about, I'm certain that this is going to come up in some other questions, but just to
Mhm.
give a brief premise, if
Right.
I talk about my writing journey, it was like a butterfly effect. I always wanted to be a writer, but I never thought of being an author, that to a full-time author at 24. But that happened because it was a butterfly effect. It was a consequence of different other things, and all this happened because it was bound to happen, and because I made certain choices, and those choices that I made were because of the kind of upbringing that I got from my parents. So that is what I believe, to answer your question in a very lengthy kind of a way.
Yeah, also that the factor of destiny or fate somewhere was an underlining point, a platform of your answer. So I at a personal touch, I want to know whether you believe on the fate, or it's bound to happen, because as you mentioned, there are times when you take certain decisions, and those decisions indirectly are due to your social or economical reasons, or your family and friends as well. They indirectly are a major reason why you chose this and not that. So do you think, or would you say that you becoming an author was bound to happen sooner or later?
So here I'd like to ask you one thing. Do you believe
Yeah,
in alternate possibilities? Do you believe in parallel universe? And do you believe in the concept of,
you are you.
different reality?
True, true, true. You have my pride, guy. I would go on and on about talking about parallel possibilities.
Okay. All right. So even I believe in that. So
Yeah.
my belief is that, whenever we are standing in a threshold in our life, for
Mhm.
every situation, there are 4 5 opportunities, or 4 5 pathways that we can move ahead. And it totally depends on us, and the kind of choices that we make, that will determine what kind of a life ahead we are going to, or what kind of
Right,
a path ahead we are going to traverse. For
right.
example, let me give a very simple, but I always say this, and this seems to be really easy to understand.
Yeah.
Suppose I was born as an orphan. I lost my parents as a young child, and then
Mhm.
I grew up in the streets, or maybe I grew up in an orphanage, and I was subject to grave injustices, and stuff like that. And then therefore I decide, दुनिया बहुत खराब चीज है
Uh,
यार, कोई
yeah.
कोई किसी का नहीं होता, and I decide to turn into a robber or a thief or a dacoit or something like that, and then
Mhm.
I die someday in an encounter.
Yeah.
That probably was one of those possibilities about for my life. And maybe another possibility was this, that despite facing all those grave injustices and everything that came in my way, I understood that how I felt when bad things happened with me, and therefore I decide that I'm not going to do this to somebody else, and if possible I'm going to help out other persons, and I put in more efforts, I put in more perseverance, and maybe then 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, I end up becoming a really a person who could help a lot of people, and maybe a person who would be respected, revered, um,
Wow.
and stuff like that. So
Amazing.
that could be another possibility. Right now here depends on the choice that you make. If I
Right.
had taken up the choice of being a robber, maybe my end was to die in an encounter. And if I'd have taken up the choice of being rigid in this matter, and persevering, to seek something in my life, maybe my life would have been alternative, alternately different. So this is what I believe about faith.
Mhm.
And here something that I recently, very recently, I understood.
Okay.
Kind of, whenever we talk about spirituality or learning about lives,
Mhm.
sorry, learning about lives, it's always a continuous process, a perennial state of learning. So
True.
previously, whenever I'm a god loving person, obviously not a god fearing one, but a
Huh.
god loving person. I pray
Right.
daily, and maybe like many other people, I had this habit of folding my hands and asking God that I'm working on this, I really hope that I get this. just bless me, bestow your blessings upon me so that I can be successful in the thing that I'm doing right now. But then I realized that's not the way to go. Now I realize that now what I say to God is this, that that I'm doing this thing, I'm putting my 100%, and I want this to to really get to the end result that I have been expecting. But in case I don't get to the end result, I want to know that what my drawbacks were. I want to know that why I could not get there, and maybe find out my drawbacks, find out the things that I missed on, and then work hard again on it or on something else. So this is what I pray right now. Pray as right now. So I believe that this entire process of spirituality, or knowing yourself better, or trying to be a better human, this is a long and continuous and consistent process, and this has to continue till you're leaving. So that's how I go about life.
And also author, that is something that great you have mentioned, that there was a time when you were like praying to God, saying ki I want this XYZ things to happen with me. And there's a time now where you say ki I want this XYZ things, but I'm putting this ABC efforts, and help me actually helping me do this ABC efforts in a better way. Or if this are not in the right direction, maybe you can tell me what are my shortcomings. So, and also,
absolutely.
Also at the same time, I want to mention that you have crossed 2K more sales on with your book. So at that point of time, maybe you are wanting, let's say you are trying out with a new book and you're wanting an X figures of sales. How do you, and right now you talk to God, and what is that conversation that happens? And I personally believe that everyone has invisible friends, and the best invisible friend that we people as have is God. So what kind of conversations you have with the Almighty there?
See, now, first of all, this is not something that I'm telling here because I just want to sound as a better person. This is I have a lot of drawbacks in myself. I get angry easily. Sometimes when I get angry, I don't I lose my to be really honest, I lose my mental balance. And I'm too emotional at times. I make rash and hasty decisions. So these are the kind of shortcomings that I still have in me. But at the same time, I always try to understand this, that being a human, as humans, the greatest quality that I need to have in me is of compassion. Even in I am a rigorous follower of the Bhagavad Gita. So there is just say that the most important thing that makes human beings is karuna. And karuna, that translates into obviously into compassion. And if you do not have compassion, you are not human. So I'm trying to be more compassionate. And I'm trying to realize things, that why I'm doing something. I mean, if today it often happens that we are driving in the streets, and then there is a beggar coming with us, and we give the beggar a 10 rupee note or a 5 rupee coin, and then we feel good about it, right? Now here the catch is, previously, like before, I used to feel that okay, this is something that I have done for them, but actually I'm not doing it for them, I'm doing it for myself. And these are the kind, because it makes me happy. So it's at the end, it's just a selfish act, it's not a selfless act. So these kind of realizations that I have, I just pray to God, I just converse with God, that these kind of realizations continue happening with me. I don't, I seriously don't fear failing, but I extremely fear not learning. And now, as I told it, this came out as a good quote, but seriously, I believe that that is how I can really improve, and maybe I can be a better version of myself. Therefore, so it is a selfish act, it's not a selfless act, it's a selfish act. But I realize that yes, I'm selfish, and I'm selfish in a good way, and my selfishness is not harming or causing any sort of adversaries to anybody else. So these are the kinds of things that I ask God, that just keep me this way, and make me more self-introspective, make me more a person who can realize more things, and at the same time, I really want that one thing that I really if I seek from God even today, and then that is to be continue being a quick learner, because in today's world we do not have time. The biggest constraint is of time. So I just hope that I continue being a quick learner, and I I really hope that I can learn as many as skill sets, or as many as things as I can. So these are the kind of things that I ask from God as of now.
Right. And as also that's what you want right now. How about let's go back to the 10th grade author who wanted to go into the humanities side and the family was against it. And this is something which is quite prevalent in a lot of Indian households because you have.
Sorry, I missed your question. What did you say?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning that in let us go back to the 10th grade author who is currently facing this dilemma of he personally wanting to go towards humanities side, but his family is against that. And that is something
Hmm,
that's quite prevalent in the Indian households because every parent
absolutely.
does have an Indian dream that your kid
Hmm,
into the best colleges and that to be in the field of science, maybe medical and engineering, or maybe law.
hmm.
That's the safe options that you, and then you go and
Yes.
work for a 9 to 5 MNC job, and that is how you are successful in life, and that is what they really take pride in telling to their relatives. Now the current generation is quite different. They want to try out
Uh,
different things, be it singing, be it music, be it literature, be it startups for that matter. They want to go towards the road not taken, and that is something I want to know from you. Were you sure about making it big into the literature field, or was it just like you have hobby or passion into it? And how did you like have the conversations with your parents at that point of time and right now?
Okay. So here, if I tell you, right after 10th, I did not want to be an author. I always wanted to be a writer, but never
Hmm.
an author. And I did not take up humanities to be a writer. I took
Okay.
up humanities because, I wanted to pursue economics.
Hmm.
And, I wanted to work in a bank as an investment banker. And
Right.
mostly because it was the highest paying job in the world. I
Right.
needed money. And that was the sole reason why I was chasing, to become an investment banker, and that is the
Mhm.
reason I took up humanities. I knew that if I take up science, maybe after a BTech degree I would again have to go for an MBA, and that's going to be complicated. And I always, since since child, I would always say that maybe whatever I was, I was smart enough to know this, that that अगर हम सीधे रास्ते से कहीं पहुंच सकते हैं, उसके लिए घूम फिर के जाने की जरूरत नहीं है. So that was it. But back then, when I really wanted to take up humanities, the kind of conversation, or the kind of the kind of way in which I dealt with the conflicts with my parents was in a very bizarre way. I fought with my father. I fought with my mother. I shout a lot. As I already told,
So that's
I
that
get angry, and those kind
the
of
fits of anger with on.
that was the kind of a person.
So
Huh.
the thing
So
is the
that is
fits of
how I
anger with Onda has remained through him from the school days.
I would say right now I have trimmed it down to a to a certain level, but still it's I would not say that I'm totally devoid of anger and stuff like that. But
Okay.
nevertheless, back then in 2010, I was I was pretty rebellious, and I did not believe that convincing in a way with rationality, and speaking in a way with in a more explanatory tone would have helped me and my parents as well. I could not realize that, obviously, because I was just a 16-year-old kid back then,
Hmm.
and I was too arrogant to even to realize, or maybe accept my mistakes back then. So that was the kind of conversation that I had. I still remember that I got 82% in 10th from my state board, and
Hmm.
my parents were expecting 85 and above, even I and all the teachers and all, because it's called distinction here. 85% and above is a distinction, and people really expected that of me. And when I missed that mark, it was a kind of a really um, mundane situation at home,
Hmm.
really difficult. Despite that, once we went out for dinner, and in a restaurant, as we were sitting, my father was asking me to pursue continue with science and stuff like that. And I probably screamed at him or something, and we had a kind of a heated argument in the restaurant.
Okay.
So that was the kind of person I was there. And right now, but when in after 2016, when I decided to turn into an author, and decided to pursue it as a full-time activity, or a full-time profession rather,
Right.
I did not lose my temperament there. I made a sort of kind of a how do we convince anybody? I mean, if you're working in a corporate structure, if you're if you have a startup or maybe anywhere, how do you convince people? You convince them with points, you convince them with logic, you convince them with figures, you convince them with numbers, you convince them with the picture after 5 years. I did exactly that with my parents, because I
Okay.
knew that as a first book I may require some sort of funding, and that
True.
funding has to also come from home. So
True.
it was sort of a business proposal, business
Mhm.
plan kind of a thing. And I just tried to convince them in a very business manner. And
Business.
it happened, like it clicked. My parents understood,
Interesting.
they stood resolutely behind me thereafter,
Mhm.
and they're standing behind me even now. So that's
Beautiful.
how I have changed from class 10th standard, if I say, from 10th standard to the
Right.
point where I started writing the book.
Interesting. So also this mentioned that you have to, convince the other person. And it's indirectly when you're writing a book, you have to indirectly convince the reader that the story is good. They
Absolutely.
do in flipping that page. So I see authors as entrepreneurs indirectly. You have to sell your book, you have to sell the brand, you have to sell the storyline. So how was it when you started writing that book? What kind of things were been in your mind? Was it just I just have a story that I have thought from so many years and I want to put it down on pages, or were you also simultaneously thinking that whenever the reader is going to read this manuscript, this book, what he or she should be feeling?
Well, here then I have to go back a bit. During my graduation years, when I pursued economics, I never thought that economics in Delhi University requires so much of calculus.
Right.
And the main reason why I did not pursue science was because I sort of had a phobia for maths. Still, I took mathematics in 11th and 12th, but that was my additional subject, so its
Okay.
marks were not counted in the final paper, so that was all sorted. But
Mhm.
coming into Ramjas College, pursuing my graduation, I felt like I was being cheated. They were giving us a BA in economics degree, and we
Okay.
are doing maths and regression, calculus, stuff like that. So I totally believe that I actually, what I did was never a bachelor in arts. It was a bachelor in science kind of a thing. And the thing that I was running away from, that came into my plate again. And when I was in my first semester, I thought that let me see what I can do. I took up some MBA related entrance books, and I tried solving certain sections from quant reasoning and all. And then I
Okay.
realized that I don't have that bit of capability, or whatever you call it. I did not have it in me. And I realized in my first semester that
Okay.
even if I get somehow, dropping a year or two, I get into a good MBA institution, I'm never going to be a good banker, because
Okay.
the kind of skill sets, maybe the skill sets I have, but the kind of technical knowledge that you need,
Hmm.
especially in terms of mathematics and statistics and stuff like that, that was not me. So I decided that I have to look for something else. And then I decided to join internships. I
Okay.
did as many as maybe 10 or 12 internships in my 3 years of
Wow.
graduation, including smaller ones and bigger ones,
Okay.
including projects as well. I was a member of our college in actors team, and something, or maybe I was also with a news feeding agency as a marketing manager there. So
Mhm.
those kind of experiences I gathered. I dealt, and I also along with a group of my friends, I was also about to organize a really big fest for Delhi University that got cancelled at the end. But um, uh, I led the team, and we talked with more than 25 companies for
Mhm.
sponsorships, and we got
Interesting.
around 65 to 70 lakhs of sponsorships were
Wow.
already on papers. So, and
Wow.
thereafter the event got cancelled, so that is entirely a different thing. Uh,
Right.
but all those kind of experiences really convinced me, really not convinced me, really gave me the confidence that I have developed certain skills. First was
Right.
the ability to convince people. Second was the bargaining and negotiation thing. Thirdly, the ability to communicate well. And fourthly,
Mhm.
to market and promote myself, or sell anything that I believe in. I really believe the first interview that I gave for was for a marketing position as an intern, and there were three ladies and two very gentlemen sitting in the interview board. And
Yeah.
one of the lady told me to sell a bra. And back then it was a crisis situation for me, because if that was something else, I could have told that this is going to look on you good on you, or something
Hmm.
like that. I
Right.
but I can never tell a lady, obviously, that this is going to look good on you. So what could I do? I could not do anything. But right then I believe that, I have to somehow, do something. I just got off my chair. I sat down on the floor, and, I told you that, see, this is going to be really difficult for me to sell. But without selling this to you, I'm not even going, I'm not going to get out of this room. So I'm going to sit here. You can consider it a dharna. And back then, Kejriwal really made dharna popular in Delhi and
Daily
in fact
times.
in
Wow.
entire India.
Wow.
So that thing came into my mind, and I told that, obviously you can call in the security personnel and throw me out. But if
Yes.
you throw me out, I'm going to mm, some sort of impact that would have on the candidates that are waiting outside as well, right? So see,
Correct.
I know this is blackmail, and maybe this is not the perfect way to start, but I'm kind of a person who would I give some really big dialogues, like I prefer dying on my feet than living on my knees. So I'm
Hmm.
not going to get out of here. You can you can try anything else, but I'm not gonna get up from here
Wow. Wow.
until unless you use force. And then they were like, no, this is not parliamentary, this is not politically correct, you have to come
Right.
here, we are not going to select this. Well, I don't care about that selection right now. I just know this, that once you buy this bra from me, only thereafter I'm going to hop out of this room. And at the
Nice.
end, they brought the bra, and they told that they have met a lot of candidates in the entire life, but nobody has sold a thing to them in this way. And they were really impressed, because at the end of the thing, it really matters in an interview or a exercise like that, that how innovative or how desperate, or how you know how effort how much effort you can really put. So they took me in, and that was the first thing that sort of changed my life. I realized that with every problem there is a solution attached to it. And thereafter the journey became more prudent, it became more polished. I really started learning about how
Mhm.
to crack interviews, how to I studied the marketing strategies of the last 100 years from different sectors. I still remember I had a diary with me where from the entire G20 countries and all the companies from 4 to 5 different sectors, and what were the
Mhm.
kind of marketing strategies, the great marketing strategies that they ever had. I studied all those. And then all those kind of I was pretty confident by the end of my graduation that
Yes.
I developed a great skill set in marketing and promoting a thing. And that thing came to a help for me while getting my book out to the readers. And now coming back to your question, when I was writing the book, and when I always write a book, it's a beautiful love story between me and the manuscript. At that moment, I never think about marketing or the reader's mindset or stuff like that. I think I am a planner. I plan everything ahead. So whenever I'm making the plot, I always ask myself that this is a plot that is close to my heart, all right, but how are readers going to take it? There are certain elements, there's certain it's often said that in showbiz and content industry, there's no sure shot formula to success, or sure shot
True. True.
formula that really makes a thing hit.
You
But
never
there's certain
know
elements
which
still.
script or which actor or which movie is going to make it big. You never know that.
Yeah, right. But even then, there is a catch. There are certain elements that that really makes a story gripping. So yeah, I do not know that this would be a blockbuster or not, but I can know that whether the story is going to be gripping or not. So that was
Right.
what I concentrated it
Right.
before planning my plot. And once I plan my plot, I want to give something different to the readers.
Mhm.
I try to incorporate as much as USPs I can put into the book. And thereafter, once I'm done with the book, and simultaneously at times I made the marketing plan. In fact, for the first book, if I talk about that, I spent 2 years writing the book and editing it. And maybe another 4 to 6 months on making a comprehensive marketing campaign for that.
Okay.
So yes, I totally agree with you. In fact, I even wrote an article about this on entrepreneur.com,
Wow.
that authors today need to be entrepreneurs as well. So we call ourselves as entrepreneurs. And
Right.
it's really important that you do not feel ashamed, or you do not
Hmm.
feel overwhelmed when you need to sell your own thing. Even today, I keep on selling my own books, and we have to keep on doing it. Even a Chetan Bhagat or a Amish Tripathi or a Durjay
They
Datta,
do
they
that.
keep on selling their books themselves. So there is no other way for that. There's no shortcut to that
No,
until unless you have a lot of money in your hand and you can, close your eyes and, invest as much as you can, hire the
interesting.
best PR in the country, hire the best marketing agencies, and let them do the work for
Hmm.
you. Until and unless you do not, and if you do not have that sort of money, you have to, keep on selling yourself. So
And
that's
also
that's
on
the
the
absolute truth.
that point where you say that if you have heavy investments at two, but at the same time the script or the book in general has to be gripping enough, right? Even if you, I mean,
Absolutely.
with great investment and marketing strategies, you can bring the book in front of the reader. You can, make him start
Uh-huh.
reading it. But if he or she doesn't like it, then it's no meaning, right? So at the end of that, the content is,
Absolutely.
and also,
Absolutely.
and also, as you mentioned that as when you are working on the plot line or when you're building the characters, as yes, at that point of time, you're thinking that how your audience is going to like it or what are the USPs. So your plot line, your character building, the tragic or the tragic events that you have in the book, you plan that accordingly, keeping the audience in mind. But once you start writing the
Yes.
first word, then it's you and the manuscript, right? At that point of time,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and wonder ki, okay, whether the reader is going to like it or not, or you don't, or I want to know, do you send a couple of chapters to the readers and see if they're liking it and then rework on it, and then you can change the plot line? Have you done that before?
Well, for the first book, I did not have the chance because I could not randomly go out to somebody and tell them to read out. But now that you have given me the idea, I'm going to do that for my second book. Thank you for that.
True, interesting. But also, so that is where, author, I want to know that you mentioned that ki if I'm starting the first chapter, I would like to finish the ending of the chapter and then it present it out to the author, to the audience. So what I am trying to say is that you write the couple of chapters, this is the flow, this is the writing style I'm going to use, and then do it, and you basically give it out to the beta readers, see if they're liking it or not, and if you're needed to make some major changes into the outline or not. So do you think that is good? And also, a follow-up question on here is that literature, and when you're writing, you write to tell a story. You want to share your own experiences, personal, private, or in general your imagination. A lot of time, media and society on authors, on artists, on creative people, they have a lot of baggage. As in, ki we want to show the real India. We want to have something that makes or creates a change in the society. So there are two different perspectives here. First is I just want to tell a story, be it real or not, be it fiction or not fiction. It is my story. I want to share it. And the second is no, 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 no. You have to be society conscious, how society is going to develop or how society is going to change. So I just want to know what is your take on it.
Okay. So I answer the second part first because the first part I really missed it. I forgot it. So answering your second part of the question, it is like this that until unless you are somebody, until unless you are a man or a woman of who matters, it really does not matter what your thoughts are. It really does not matter that if you think something for the society or try to write something representing it. So it's really important that at least with the first couple of books or in any way in any artistic field with the first couple of your projects, you really keep in mind that they should be commercial in nature so that you reach out to more and more people. If in your first project you cannot reach out to a maximum base of people, then there is no point thinking about the second book. So the first book or the first project in any art form should always concentrate on reaching out to more and more people, and thereafter once you're established, once you are that you have a loyal set of readers or a loyal set of consumers for
Mhm.
anything that you do, thereafter you can really talk about your real issues or the issues that really disturb you. I mean there are many things that really disturb me, but uh, let me give you an example. Like I was doing a scripting for an independent kind of a film, and while doing that I tried to incorporate certain social message in it, and then they told me that we do not fund societal messages here. This is a commercial project. If you really want to do something for
Okay,
the
okay.
society, then you
Mhm.
should have the funds. You should yourself have the funds, and that was something that I realized. It's true, with somebody else's money you cannot fulfill your dream. You really need to be concerned about the market. You really need to be it's just like a startup or a company. If there is an investor investing upon you, He
Hmm.
expects a return, and there's nothing wrong in that. So first of all, you need to get to that point where you're independent and you do not really need an investor. Probably you're not dependent on other external factors. Once you reach to that point,
Uh-huh.
the whole field is yours. Play it as the way you want.
True, true. So talking on, so I was asking you this
Uh,
question here, that if you have half-written novel, you have couple of chapters, would you like want to share it to the beta reader, and they suggesting you that you make those changes in the plot line, and so you change the plot line as you're writing it?
uh, Maybe I would not do that. I really don't know if other authors would endorse this or not, but
Mm,
maybe I would not do that. Not because that I really cannot share a half-written thing or a half-done artwork with somebody else. I can share it with my close close
group
knitted
of
group.
people,
I can
right?
share it with certain authors whom I admire, whom I look up to. But I cannot really share it with the beta a pool of readers. The reason probably being this, that that's going to as an author, or as a person who is doing something that's in any way somewhat entrepreneurial in nature. You really need to have an idea on by yourself that what the market wants, what the market is like, and what are the trends going. If
True,
you
true, true.
really take an external help, or if you try to get a survey or something like that, I don't think that it really I feel that would undermine my own capabilities, and that is the reason. Maybe it's my arrogance speaking or something, but as
No,
of
no.
now, I would not be
True, true.
comfortable
I
doing
mean, every
that.
I also personally feel that every artist in is very how I should put it. It is very confident, or you can say he's a bit arrogant about his art form. You know, if he has a outline, if he has a plot line, his story, he wants to make sure that the story becomes the same way he was actually planning. Great. So that brings me to the point where I would like to know about how did the Chronicles of Mortal Vishnu happen? What was the story about? And like is it like something from your personal experiences down where you hear, or was it something which you wanted to like start off and that was something which you like go went ahead with?
This happened like this. I graduated in 2016. I had a couple of job offers, and at the same time, with all those experiences, doing internships and all, I wanted to try my hand at something entrepreneurial, as I already mentioned.
Right.
And right then, but I suffered from a chronic liver ailment, and
Okay.
at the same time I went through certain personal issues, relationship issues, certain
Mm-hmm.
family issues, and my father fell terribly ill back then. I had to get him to Delhi for and get him admitted to a hospital as well. And even his son was admitted maybe 2 or 3 times, when even I was not even here back then. So all those kind of things really pushed me into depression. I was into clinical depression. It was a 9 month long period where I went to a psychiatrist. First I went to a psychologist, and then to a
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrist, and I was on medication for 9 months.
True.
And things were slowly, gradually improving. And then my mother suggested, why don't I try yoga? I did that. And when I tried yoga, I
Mm-hmm.
suddenly had an interest towards this ancient school of thoughts of Hinduism. Before that, I was sort of an atheist. I really did not, believe in God, and did not believe in things, largely because, my father is a Brahmin. My father's family, the people who stay now, uh, what to say, where my roots are from, like from the village that I'm actually, where my father is from, they are pretty kind of, rigid kind of people. And I've
Mm-hmm.
seen, Brahminical traditions, customs, and stuff like that. And I really did
Mm-hmm.
not, support those. So I really could not feel relatable to all those kind of things. And then that is why, I never believed in God. But once I did yoga, I suddenly, I don't know why and how, but it just happened that I had this interest towards Hinduism's ancient school of thoughts. I read the Mahabharata, I read the Bhagavad Gita, and at the same
Okay.
time, because I had a lot of time in my hands and I had to do something with it, I started watching movies. Before that period, I never watched Hollywood movies per se. I definitely watched some of the great ones, and I was very selective. But thereafter, I was not a superhero movie fan. But then in 2016, I started watching the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I was
Wow.
blown away with fantasy.
Wow.
And it was back then only when I started watching, when I watched for the first time the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Although I had read the book before, but I was never a fan of fantasy before. I really found that fantasy was never true, so there's no point in reading or
Uh-huh.
being affiliated to it. But when I watched all these kind of great movies, or I read all these kind of books, I realized that fantasy has its own maza hai usme. You can
Huh.
create your own world. You can
Right.
create anything. There is no limitation, there is no constraint. It's a feeling of emancipation. For me, fantasy, the synonyms for fantasy should be emancipation. So
True.
that is what I felt. And
Huh.
I really realized that if I can mix mythology with fantasies, there is something really great that can be created. And another underlining fact that I should mention here was this, that when I read the Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata, I realized that the way ideals of Hinduism has been represented, there has been a gross misinterpretation to things. We often hear that the Vedas, or maybe a lot of our ancient Hindu scriptures demean women, or pull them down, but that was not the case.
True.
uh, they have shown women in a very different light than to what we actually hear now. So
Mhm.
things like, even if we talk about the caste system, the way it started it, and the way it was followed in the initial phases, it was completely different from what it has become. Then I
Become.
realized that all these things got diluted with time, because people tried to try to squeeze in benefits for themselves. And then I realized that certain philosophies, certain wisdoms, and everything, and certain misconceptions, maybe I can make a small baby step to clear those. And that is why combining mythological philosophies and tales from mythology, along with its inspirations and ideals, and clubbing it with a really great fantasy work, would really work in two ways. First of all, like, it's going to be a profound piece of work. Secondly, it has a market. I always, since I was thinking of doing it in a professional way, since I had to earn my bread and butter from this thing, I knew that I have to take care of the commercial interest as well. So I just balance both the things together, and decided that I should come up with a plot that would sell well, that would give the right message, and that would be profound and have depth in it. And that's how Chronicles of Mortal Vishnu happened. But before that, if I really tell, since class standard 10th, whenever I used to think about stories, or whenever I wrote a short story or anything, it was always in the genre of thrillers and suspense. And mostly it was psychological thriller. There was a point in time, when I studied psychological disorder that was available on the internet, and I was quite fascinated by it. So that was the initial genre that I really loved. But then I switched to mythology, because things happened with me. As I told you before, that it was sort of a butterfly effect. I did not plan it, it just went on to happen. And that
Mhm.
made me realize that there is nothing you can really plan, but you can always be prepared for it. And that preparation was, and how was I prepared? By doing those internships, by doing those projects in my college days, and by
Mhm.
realizing the fact that economics and then pursuing MBA was beyond my capabilities. If I would
Right.
not have realized my constraints,
Right.
and again, if I would have realized and just sat back and felt depressed, then nothing would have
Mhm.
happened. So
Right.
all we can do is to really prepare ourselves to face any situation, and try to be a solution driven centric, try to always have a solution centric approach to anything that we face in life.
Nice. So at this point of
So
time, I would
that
like to
is
mention that.
how Chronicle.
Yeah. So as I was like going ahead with this, so you mean to say that opportunities are there, opportunities are like in abundance, but the only thing that you can do is be prepared. So as you mentioned that the internships that you did, also the research that you did about marketing strategies. So that was the preparation that you were doing directly, indirectly, which helped you when you were writing this book. So the
Absolutely.
mindset that you had about when how your book is going to hit the market, what the reader is expecting, that indirectly was being shaped in the Delhi University, where you were negotiating with the investor for the college festival, or when you were trying that interview where you were trying to sell the bra to the interviewer. So that kind of a stuff was the fact
Right.
which indirectly helped Antar when he was trying to market this book. Is that correct?
Absolutely. It's totally
And
correct.
and also you mentioned that Marvel was there. I would like to know which Marvel character is your favorite, and if you had the opportunity to use one of the superpower, which would it that be?
I think, the favorite one, nobody needs to make a guess. That's obviously Iron Man. And the superpower that I really need would also be, the tech geniusness of Tony Stark. If you have that sort of geniusness in you, you do not need any other superpower. Being a genius in itself is a superpower.
True. Also, okay, so when if it's specifically talking about Iron Man and Tony Stark in Perfect, he always presents himself. There are these four major which he talks about: genius, philanthropist, billionaire, and playboy. So out of this four, how closely is Antar right now? And okay, presenting this question in a different manner, I would like to ask, which out of these four qualities do you think you would want to pick only one? Which would it had be?
Um, Obviously, I won't lie. If I could be as genius as him, that would what I want.
That would
And
be the
thereafter philanthropical, and then thereafter billionaire, and thereafter not a playboy because a, I cannot be a playboy as of now because I have certain constraints.
certain concerns. As in, I would like to know about that.
Well, as in like I have been in a relationship for quite a long time. So
Mhm.
before that, if you talk me before, I came into a relationship in class 10th. So before that, if you talk about me, I was a kind of a big time flirt. That was a pretty young age to be such, but I agree. But I was a big time flirt before that. So the things that people
Uh, okay. So also, so because a lot of authors, they would accept the fact that they are quite flirtatious when it comes to their personal lives. So do you think that energy which goes on to wooing girls per se is now reflected in writing scripts, be it like in writing scripts for Bollywood or the books? Is that so? Also, this fact which I would like the wholesome question being, how do you channel that creative mindset or that creative energy into your books or be it in personal life? Because obviously as a writer we come across a lot of writer blocks. We come across saying, okay, now what now? So how do you use that, and how where do you take inspiration from?
See, if you talk about inspiration, I was, from pre 2016 and post 2016, I'm like two different kind of individuals. I
Mhm.
was an, total extrovert until 2016, and from 2016, I have more traits that would qualify me as an introvert. So,
Okay.
those the kind of things that you're talking about, that really does not help me right now. What helps me is, I really get inspired a lot by, fiction, and mostly by the web shows and the films that I watch. I take a lot of lessons from that. What a great movie or a great show can teach you, nothing else can ever teach you. This is what I believe, and everything that I watch it with a different perspective. I'm not talking about from the perspective of being a filmmaker or something, but from the perspective of learning. So if I talk Bahubali, it's a reflection of how the Mahabharata went on to happen. So I believe it's it's hugely inspired from Mahabharata. But even then, thereafter, there's so many things to learn from Bahubali, from its central characters, and like that, from Game of Thrones. If I say here, we can learn so many things from each and every character. Especially my personal favorite. If I talk about fictional character, and if you
Mhm.
ask me which is my most favorite fiction
Yeah.
character of all time across everything, then that has to be Tyrion Lannister. And
Wow.
the way he the his there was a quote of his, right, that when he says that wear your drawbacks, or you wear your flaws like your armor, and the world can never use it
True.
against you. There is nothing more profound than that dialogue. I feel so. So these are the kind of take and watch a show or a movie 10 to 15 times normally. I mean, it does not, I does not lose the interest. The first time with the kind of interest that I watch a good movie or a good show, the 10th time or the nth time I'm watching it, I would have the same interest in it, because every time I'm left bewildered. I learn something new, and I get a lesson. So it's an
Interesting.
entertaining and informative and message driven exercise for me,
Wow.
and recreation as well.
Wow. So that is a question here, that whenever creative mindset is watching some creative content, is it like, oh, this is good stuff. Oh, this is a great idea. I would like to reciprocate it in my next content which I'm creating. So do you make notes, or is that lingering behind your brain? Like, okay, this is
Absolutely,
I'm going to,
it happens.
incorporate in one of my plot line.
It happens. I mean, if we talk about, I don't know if you have read my book or not. If you read my book, then maybe you'd agree with this. And again, at the risk of sound a bit from all the viewers and all the readers' views and critical views, one thing that I can conclude, and that is this: that I'm really good at writing war scenes. I'm really good at depicting battles, and it's really difficult to depict a battle. Even on screen, it is difficult, and even on papers, it is more difficult. Because whenever you're writing something, a battle never happens between two characters, right? It simultaneously incorporates thousands and lakhs of people and
Right.
Gaugamela, where Alexander defeated Darius, or the Battle of Hydaspes, where Alexander and King Porus fought. Those two are the greatest battles in recorded history. But and you can obviously read about them, and there are many strategies used. There are many formations that have been described. The way there are descriptions, but just by reading those kind of things, you're never going to get the real feel of it, or you cannot develop the knack of writing, or really describing a battle. That
Hmm.
only happens when you watch it. And especially if you talk about fort seasons, castle seasons special, and things like that, there is nothing that shows does it. I mean, there are at least three major battles where there has been somewhat descriptively shown about how castles or forts are seized and attacked or defended and stuff like that. And that is
Yeah.
what I'm now using in my second book. Obviously,
Interesting.
it's just an inspiration. There is I'm not trying to reciprocate it, because whenever I really forgot which author said me this. Maybe
Mhm.
this was I really forgot, but live it. But there was an advice that I can recall, that if there is somebody who wants to write about witches, witchcrafty and stuff, and magic and stuff like that, and they try to create something like Harry Potter, nobody's going to read it. Because if people wants to read something like that, they already have maybe so many volumes of Harry Potter series, so they're going to read it. Nobody is going to read another book that is
Another.
similar to it.
Yeah.
So that got stuck in my mind. Therefore, reciprocating something is really of no use. But obviously you're going to always get inspired. And anyway, there are only 7 different kinds of stories in the world that can be told in and different kind of ways.
Sure. So interesting. So now that, and following up here, that's something which for a lot of newbie writers, they are, because obviously when you talk about wanting to become a writer, it's a given say that you have read a couple of books, you have your own chosen favorite,
Uh-huh.
you who you
Oh.
look up to.
Hmm.
So at that point of time, for newbie authors specifically, there is this study which says that there you would find quite correlativity the author, the main role model that they have chosen to, and their in their work, it's quite relatable. And it's relatable in the sense that you can say, okay, all right, this was quite a spin-off of the main version. If I'm I'm big my big inspiration is J.K. Rowling, and if I'm trying to write a book something on the fact where a magical fantasy world, you would find a lot of correlation between them. So what do you think? Is it good, is it bad, and does it sell? That's my question.
uh, well, here, if you obviously everyone has a favorite author, a favorite set of books, and you're bound to be inspired, and there would be some sort of reflection that would be seen in your final product. But what as an author or as a writer a person can do is this, that try to be really conscious about it, and try to do it as much as possible, that just try that you do not end up reflecting on somebody else's work, or
So, hello, hello. Anta, you there?
I am there.
Yeah, there was the same network issue. I'm not sure.
Acha.
We were talking about
So,
uh, the,
so should I repeat the answer from the beginning?
yeah, yeah, that would be better. That would be better. Yes, please. So you're telling
Okay, all right.
how are the authors, inspired from the role models.
So yeah, that's bound to happen. You are always going to be inspired from your role model. You are always going to have a touch of what really inspires you. But at the same time, there is an exercise that you can really follow. I mean, here if I talk about a battle scene, the Battle of Bastards from Game of Thrones season 6, episode 9. All right. So here, when I watched it for the first time, I totally enjoyed it. Second time when I watched it, I totally enjoyed it again. But the third time when I watched that episode, I decided to think, or I rather, I consciously thought that what could have been different ways in which the this battle could have been depicted. Completely, alternate from the kind of scenes that were actually shot and shown. What could have been the alternate possibilities? And maybe what could have made it better? Obviously, I'm nobody to criticize J.R.R. Martin or think that what could have been better. But as a writer, or at that time just as a viewer, you tend to think that what could have been even better, what could have made that battle even more better. So these are the kind of things, if you do this sort of exercises, I believe that you can restrict yourself from uh, from reflecting exactly somebody else's work, when you're writing something of your own.
Interesting. Interesting. And now that we have this great book and it's out now, so a lot of time writers when they're writing, when they started writing the book, they are filled with enthusiasm. They have a story to say, but towards the end, when you have finished your first draft and you have your second, third draft going on, you are revising it, you're editing stuff, people tend to lose their vigor, they tend to lose the energy that they started off with. So how did you cope up with that? And especially a lot of time what happens is that people in general have the fact that uh, is he you're a younger
Ah,
or what?
he's my younger brother.
Supposed to younger brothers are made up for that this only. So yeah, so as a
No, he's
huh?
no, like I would say this is one of an incident. He generally is quite cooperative.
Saving your being an so this is Antar being an elder brother saving his younger brother's face. Anyways, so as I was mentioning that here, a lot of time what happens is that you tend to lose your energy and vigor towards the end of the journey. And also what happens is a lot of writers just say, I've just written the book and that is all my job. Now, be it the book cover design, be it editing or be it marketing, they do not want to actively get involved in it. So what is your thought process on it?
If you are writing just for for a passion, if you have another job, if you
Mm-hmm.
do not care about the sales, then do
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want. Really,
Right.
I'm telling you, it's not an, I mean, just you need to satisfy yourself, then that's all right.
Okay.
Then there is no advice to follow, there is nothing to think about,
Ah,
because this is something that you are doing as a passion, as a hobby, so that's all right. But if you are
right.
thinking that you need to earn your bread and butter from this field or from this work, then you
Right.
have to be actively involved, right from the editing process to the cover designing and everything else, to marketing plan, to you need to do book tours, you need to go up for book signings, you need to tell people that your book is out, you need to script your book trailer, you need to do everything, you need to be involved in everything. I mean, if you are writing a book and you want to be a professional at it, just consider that your book is your product,
Mm-hmm.
and the entire writing process is a startup. So that is the way it is.
It is
It
to
is that is the only way it is going to work. Otherwise, it's never gonna work.
Interesting, interesting. And also now that,
Especially especially here I would like to, for anybody who would want to publish his or her book in, in the coming days
yeah,
or so, and probably they would be watching this, then this is for them. uh, as much as you invest in the plot and the writing process of the story, invest double that effort in the book cover and the book blurb, because nobody is going to read your story, or nobody is going to read your, know your story when this your book on Amazon or maybe on a bookstore. What are they going to, the buying decision will be based on two factors. First, the book cover. It has to stand out from the rest of the books that is available on the shelf. And secondly, the blurb at the end of the book, at the back
true,
cover of the book.
right.
If these two things, if these two things really fall in your favor, you are going to rock. If these two
Right.
things do not fall in your favor, it's really going to be
Hard. So that's
really dull for you.
people go and keep on telling that don't judge the book by its cover, but indirectly or directly society does that, right? We do that when we.
That's very human nature. I mean, everybody says that, many people, I mean, everyone would say that, nobody would choose a person or a partner based on, the facial appearance. But when you, what is love at first sight? It's
True.
about the face, right?
Right.
So you cannot be, you just trying to be, politically correct. You cannot, digress from being practical, right?
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great analogy, because that's what actually happens. You're attracted to a certain person. In the similar way, you would want people to get attracted to your book by its blurb and by its book cover. That's you basically,
Right.
modifying it, putting makeup and good clothes on your book. That is how your designing and cover designing goes.
Absolutely.
Great answer. And also now, like, we are in the closing segment of this whole episode. I would like to know what are your thoughts on it and how has the journey been. What was that point where you were like, "Ki, let's not do it," and now looking back to the whole writing journey, what are you thankful for? Yes, ki, I completed the journey from A to Z. What was like that, the feeling of gratitude?
Okay. So here I would say, the first time when even though I was writing, framing the plot of this book, right
Mm-hmm.
then this contest came up, with Penguin Books and Engage Pocket Stories. There was this opportunity to co-author with Durjay Datta for a book of
Okay.
Nano Tales, and for that,
Oh.
it was back then my girlfriend who suggested me to, take part in it.
Mhm.
And before that, I was never a fan of flash fiction and Nano Tales and stuff like that. I considered that these kind of things really is detrimental to the quality of writing. So I was away from that. And but then when I really thought about one thing that my mother used to say as a when I was a kid. My mother always said that as an artist or even as a person, you really need to be able to do many things. You should be a multitasker, and especially if an artist, you need to be really versatile. It's not like this that if you can do this, you say that no, main ye kar sakta hu or ye main nahi karunga. So
Mhm.
that's not how it works, because
Right.
opportunities will never come in your way in the in the shape and sizes that you want. It's going to come in the in very very different kind of shapes and sizes, and
Right.
it's really nothing that you can control about. So when
Right.
that contest really happened, and I decided that all right, I'm going to take part in it. I remember I spent around 2 weeks on it, and made composed around 6 to 8 no, actually 8 to 10 of Nano Tales. And
Mhm.
then I sent them to them to for the contest, and 6 of those got selected and were published along with Durjay Datta
Wow.
and a few others. And when that happened, I was certain that I have this knack of satisfying different sets of readers. And when you have this confidence that yes, even you can, there are various segments of readers, but when you have this confidence, you can satisfy each one of them or most of them. That is when I
Mhm.
believe that you should think of commercially entering into this space of writing books.
Nice.
And when that happened, that was the first moment when I realized that yes, I can take a plunge into this field. And
Mhm.
secondly, when this book came out, sorry, when I wrote this book, it was a beautiful process. And then this book came out. At first, in the first few days, the book really did well. The first day it sold around 56 to 58 copies. I remember that correctly. And then thereafter, for the next 7 8 days, 10 12 days, the book sales were not that consistent, and I was really worried. And thereafter, I had a PR agency. So the guy who was the CEO of that PR agency told me, he explained me certain things about life, certain perspectives, and obviously I had already read the Bhagavad Gita, so it was easier for me to grasp it. I just needed an external help, and that is where he came into the scene.
Nice.
And uh, I really, started not worrying about the result. I started, I got to know this, that I have 15 activities planned, 15 promotional activities, and was and I told myself that out of those 15, maybe 10 of them are gonna flop, but even if 5 of them succeeds, it's well and good. I'm going to hit the bullseye, the target that I'm looking for, and that is what happened. I had 15 different strategies. I used each one of them. Of those, maybe 8 9 succeeded and the rest failed, and still I got 20K
Right.
plus sales in figures. And so I really learned that from this book journey, that you really need to be patient, and secondly, you really do not have control upon anything. The thing that I already told you, you can only prepare, and that is something
Right.
that really got validated. And thirdly,
Okay.
I realized that for everything there is the nutshell, or the major thing is to be calm in any situation. This is the most difficult task in the world, but if you can be really calm in any situation, the best thing that happens is that you come up with new solutions, you come up with new novelty, you come up with novel ideas. So that is what happened, and this is all this lessons that I learned from this journey. And
Interesting.
obviously, by the third, fourth month, the book sold around uh, 5,000, 6,000 copies,
Mhm.
or maybe more. But by then, I was not really interested in the sales figure, because the not obviously I was interested because my royalty check was pending. But apart from that, I was not really concerned, because I learned a lot about life, and that could be never taken away from me.
Mm.
So it was a total a learning experience.
Wow.